Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. We do have a few announcements prior to the roll call. Some committee members have joined us from locations outside the room. And I'd just like to remind you, when you join the meeting remotely, your microphone will automatically be muted. Please unmute your microphone in order to respond to the roll call. And for our legislative committee members, if you're attending remotely, in addition to responding regarding your presence, please also indicate whether you're in Frankfort or outside Frankfort for your travel voucher purposes. And then after responding to the roll call, please return your microphone to mute. And with that, I would ask Madam Secretary to call the roll.
Senator Harper Angel. Senator
Present
Nemes.
remotely in the district.
Thank you.
Present in the room.
Representative Heverin.
Remotely from my district.
Thank you. Representative Kulkarni. Tom Crawford.
Present.
Thank you. Co-Chair Mills.
Here in the room.
Co-Chair Bridges.
Here in the room. Okay, looks like we do have a quorum, so we'll get started with the motion for the approval of the minutes from last meeting. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Okay, I'd like to make a few announcements prior to the presentation. We do have 3 representatives today from the PVAs, and we've also, I want to also reach out and acknowledge Mr. Crawford from Revenue for participating in this and being a member. We do appreciate that, and it's very important. So, but we have Jeff Kelly from the PVA from Webster County. We have Rachel Foster, which is the PVA of Davies County, and we have Cindy Martin, which is PVA of Boone County. And our staff are here in the meeting room and will be monitoring the chat function. So if you're attending remotely and you have a question, we ask that you use the chat button, and our staff will help us. When you're recognized for your question, please unmute your microphone and proceed with your question. And then always remember to return your microphone to mute when your business is finished. So with that, I would like to turn the meeting over to Jeff Kelly, the PVA at Webster County. It's good to have you with us, Jeff.
Thank you, Representative Bridges. I'm glad to be in part of this, and I'm looking forward to us working together on some issues. How do you want me to do this? Do you want me to share my screen from my PowerPoint, or is it up there?
No, you can share it from your PowerPoint, please.
All right. I was noticing that the duties of this task force were to try to reduce redundancy and increase efficiency, improve processes, increase cost savings, and create uniformity. The issues that we were asked to talk about were employees, office procedures, staff training and policy, record keeping, and technology. And we tried to stay on task and keep it within these parameters today. So with that being said, I'm going to go to share screen and
Absolutely.
pop up my. All right, I am Jeffrey D. Kelly. I'm the Property Evaluation Administrator in Webster County, Kentucky. I have been here since December 6th of 1993. I've really enjoyed this position. It's a challenging position. I know that one time me and Denise Harper had a conversation, and she said, I wouldn't want your jurisdiction. I said, well, I sure wouldn't want your jurisdiction. All counties are different. They have different workloads, different ways of doing things. As far as my employees go, it's a PVA plus 3 full-time employees. Under a FAD calculation, my office has 3.49 positions, and DOR uses 3 of those positions that we fill as full-time positions with benefits. I'm a grade 14 county based on population, square miles, certified assessment. In the FAD calculation, we took into consideration more than just the population, square miles, and certified assessment.
Excuse me, Jeff. Did you share your screen?
I did.
Okay, we're not getting it up. Give us just a moment. We'll get that pulled up if we can. Okay, can we pull it up? Yeah. I tell you what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to share yours from here So we'll pull it up and then follow along with you. Give us just a minute. I'm sorry for the delay. A few technical difficulties. But during that time, Senator Mills will be our entertainment.
Kelly's from our
Chase,
district.
did you put them all on? here?
Okay.
I think so.
Okay,
L.
but, Webster, so it'd be that one, this one. Okay.
One second. You're good.
So, Mr. Kelly, if you'll just let me know when to advance the screen, I'll do that for you. Let's see if I.
Were you able to hear that, Jeff?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, if you'll just tell her when to advance the screen, she's on page 1. I don't know if you can see that or not, but just tell her when to
Okay,
flip on the page.
I
Okay.
had advanced to slide 2, to address the issues of number of employees.
So how do Okay,
All right, and I had talked about us being a grade 14 county based on certain criteria. The FAT calculation expanded that criteria, and it considered parcel count, demographics, vehicle count, the number of tangible returns that county processes. Every county is unique. You've got some counties that are agricultural, some that were mining, some that are manufacturing. That's one of the difficulties of trying to come up with true uniformity, is because each county is unique and different. Going to the next slide, our office procedures issues. Our local offices are charged with certain duties that we have to follow, being constitutional, statutory, and recommended guidelines from revenue. I think that an important point here is we need to involve our people. We need to bring them on board, active. We need to show them duties in a clear and concise manner, and what the outcome is going to be, what the result's going to be. If we use high-performance leadership and get our people on board, I think that if everybody sees the end result, it would be a better quality assessment role in a more timely manner if everybody knows their role and what they're supposed to do. I understand you guys are going to visit the tax calendar, and I think one of the things we could do is expand on our Kentucky property tax calendar to include those items in between, those functions and tasks that we have to accomplish. I think with a group from the PVAs and a group from revenue, we could sit down and come up with an expanded calendar that would give everybody a roadmap of what our duties are, what we're supposed to do, where everybody can get it done in a timely manner. One of the things that we try to do is not do double work, redundancy. And a good example of that is if you plan your quad work and your field work, where you lay out, this is where we're going today, this is what we're going to pick up, and decrease the amount of road mileage and road expense, windshield time, to where that you've got your routes laid out where you can just pick up a property, pick up a property, pick up a property, where it just flows. It takes a lot less time, a lot less expense if you do a little planning on the front end. Next thing, record keeping. Record keeping, of course, we're guided by statutes and guidelines for storing public records. Available storage space is different in every county. Most counties, they're crunched for storage space. They ran out. They have years and years of archived records that they may not have went in and purged some of those records they could have. Storage spaces are often not the ideal place to store stuff. They're damp, they're musty, you get rodent infestation, different things in there, heat that will ruin the records. I think for record keeping, we need to make a move toward keeping those records digitally, where they can be recalled in a more expedient manner. If anybody's ever went looking for a piece of paper in a dozen banker's boxes on the 4th floor of a building, that can be pretty difficult to find sometimes. Next slide, staff training policies and issues. I think each county does this different. My county has always used a mentoring process. We pull somebody in, we work with them. We utilize the Kentucky Department of Revenue's Education and Research branch where they can be sent to take courses and hear other people talk about the KRSs that apply and what can be done. Smaller counties, our employees are cross-trained for many different tasks. In larger counties, you may have a person, all they do is mapping, all they do is vehicles, all they do is tangible returns. In our county, we have to train employees to do more than one task, and that's very difficult. It takes time to train somebody in. Now, we do have a 6-month probationary incentive where if a person comes in and they do well their first 6 months, they're eligible for an increment in pay that would compensate them for learning their job in an expedient manner where they can fall right in and be a useful employee as far as contributing to the everyday workload of the office. But it takes a lot of time to train new employees. On the next slide, technology. This is where we often hit a curve because some offices have more funding to utilize better technology. There are many products out there that can make it work more efficiently and save time, but there's also a cost and benefit that must be considered. Are we getting our money's worth out of what we've spent on this? Now, my office uses PVDNet. It's a cloud-based program. It's the newest product from Government Utilities Technology. A lot of the counties use PVD Manage, which is housed locally in-house. Mine is on the cloud, and it's backed up by PVD. We use QPublic for websites. QPublic has been great. It's got a format that most people are familiar with. They've got it where you can use your same username and password and have roles with different counties, descriptions. Everybody I've talked to about the websites have really enjoyed using the QPublic websites. Now, we have a ULA agreement for our ESRI or RGIS, where the revenue is able to get us that product at a more affordable price. And we use Zscope to log in for our vehicles. Most offices use Microsoft Office, and then some of them subscribe to online services for trying to find people and addresses and phone numbers. But we choose the programs our office can best afford. And other agencies are provided standardized software, and I think that's where you get the uniformity between the circuit clerks and county clerks and different ones, is because their tasks are so similar that they can put them all on the same software. Ours, a lot of times, is based on what our workload is, what we can afford to buy. So that's where you come up with some of the issues of uniformity. Let's see here. On the next slide, one thing I do have for the committee today is I've got a recommendation for KRS 133-120. 133-120 spells out who can represent a property owner on a protest and appeal of a property for a commission, for a fee. And we've had more frequent tax representatives that have came to the forefront to represent property owners on tax protests and appeals. Oftentimes, these representatives are working on a contingency fee basis. Now, we can ask for that contingency fee basis to see, what their motivation is, unless they're an attorney. Of course, an attorney can advocate, and they don't have to share that information with us. But many of these individuals that come forward are purely an advocate for the property owner, and their pay is based on a percentage of the tax savings for this year and possibly even future years. Now, the KRS identified those people who could represent a property owner, and officers should make sure that the person who they're talking to does meet this KRS for representing a property owner. We want the assessments to be right. We want qualified people to work with on this. When you get somebody that comes in and just throws out a ridiculous value, hoping that they can get some kind of a split or a settlement, that's not in the spirit of what we do with our assessments and our property tax system. Mike and I had talked about this, and KCO did a survey. They surveyed about 57 counties and identified big box stores. And when we talk about big box stores, talking about like Walmart and maybe Kmart or Tractor Supply, Lowe's, something like that. But between the big box stores, the apartment owners, and the triple net lease properties, which includes a big wide variety of fast food chains and different types of retail stores, we're probably talking about $50 billion statewide. And if we split the assessments on those, you talk about $25 billion times a 1% effective tax rate, that's $250 million. So we need to take these protests and appeals seriously, make sure that the people we're conferencing with are qualified, and that we are truly seeking what is the fair cash value or agricultural value of the property based on our Constitution and our statutes. On the next page, we did some cleanup a few years ago. We had some out-of-state appraisers that wanted to come here acting as an appraiser to represent property owners on protests and appeals, but they didn't want to get a license here. So Larry Disney with the Kentucky Real Estate Appraisers Board assisted us in language to where that we addressed that. Now, the KRS 133-120 starts out with an attorney. It really should read a Kentucky licensed attorney. I was talking with Andrew Powell in Henderson County. Andrew's an attorney. He felt like that this was a little broad. This could be misleading and may encourage unauthorized practice of law that's inconsistent with Kentucky license laws for attorneys. A certified public accountant. I think likewise, a certified public accountant should be someone who possesses a license in Kentucky. Steve was a certified real estate broker, and Representative Bridges, I never understood what they meant by that, because the next one is a Kentucky licensed real estate broker. I think that probably we could drop out that certified real estate broker and just have a Kentucky licensed real estate broker. I think that would make it a little more easy to read. On the next slide, an employee of the property owner, a salaried employee who is there on behalf of the property owner. The next one, a licensed or certified Kentucky real estate appraiser. And we stepped that down and had another one that was a person who obtained a temporary practice permit or a reciprocal license with the state of Kentucky that was a licensed or certified appraiser in another state. Now there was the last one said any person who possesses a professional appraisal designation as approved by the department. Well, I think the previous two covered appraisers, so I don't know that we need that one, but I would like to get with somebody to sponsor some kind of legislation where we can do a cleanup of this list, where that the list has qualified people that come to the table, that can work with us, that are knowledgeable, and we can get these assessments right for people. Protests or appeals by representatives should be by individuals familiar with property valuation and our Kentucky revised statutes. A lot of times we'll get these protests and appeals in, and it'll be a date that's different than our effective date of assessment. It'll be for a purpose that is different than the purpose of the assessment, or a function that's different than the function of the assessment. And when we get those in, it makes you question, is the intended use of this valuation consistent with our Kentucky laws for property assessments? Now, on the last slide there, I've got a little summary. I've been involved on several committees over the years looking at better ways to do things and possible funding. I hope that the task force can come up with some kind of an idea for a dedicated funding stream that would consider all the different profiles of the counties. I know that it's hard to get a one-size-fits-all. My position has always been that a portion of the state rate could be earmarked for funding the PVA offices as an income-producing arm of the state government. And additionally, we have a lot of special districts that have excess funds. They've got more than a year's appropriation set aside in carryover, and I think they should share in the expense of paying for the work that we do. If a county extension service is going to get $300,000 to $350,000 in tax money, I don't have a problem asking them to contribute to the cost of putting that tax roll together at a reasonable fee. But that's what I had put together for today. Do you have any questions for me?
Okay, Mr. Kelly, I'll start off because first I want to thank you. I know I talked to my PVA officer yesterday, and he was singing your praises for the help you've given him, especially on farm exemptions and farm appraisals and everything on agricultural land. He said you've been a great asset, and he asked me to tell you that. And since you're not here in person, I want to tell you we appreciate that. It's been a great help to him. And your suggestions are right in line with several that's been mentioned in the past meeting. I see that Senator Nemus has a question. I'll turn it over to him.
Yes, thank you very much. You mentioned something about record keeping. Had we talked about this before, about using the library and archives for maybe some possibility of using that? I'm not talking about the local library, I'm talking about the state. They have facilities to keep your records.
My records are housed here locally. I've never been approached about or thought about, sending stuff to state library and archives where they could archive that information. Most of the time, if it had to be recalled, it would probably need to be recalled here locally, but I'm sure we could retrieve it from libraries and archives as well.
Just a suggestion, you brought that up, so, okay, thank you.
Senator Mills? Co-Chair Mills?
Jeff, good to see you. How are things in Webster
Hello,
County?
Robbie. We are good today.
Couple questions for you. I like your suggestion with the KRS, and we'll probably incorporate that into some of our findings. You mentioned the appeals board, and do you know if is the state appeals board up and functioning now? Or do they just have hearings twice a year, or can you give us an update on how that's functioning right now?
At this point, we went from the Kentucky Board of Tax Appeals to the Kentucky Claims Commission, and things are going through the Claims Commission. I'm not sure what their schedule is. I know there's been some talk about possibly separating back out the Kentucky Board of Tax Appeals as a hearing body that could hear these state appeal cases out, outside of going through the Claims Commission.
So as far as this year, has there been any hearings to date this year in 2020 that you know of?
I'm sure there has. I'm sure there's some carryover cases from other counties. I didn't have one, but they're usually reviewing cases, year round, because with us all being on the same calendar, all these state appeals hit at the same time, and they can't reasonably hear all of them at once. Sometimes they get staggered throughout the year.
Thought I had another question here. Can you expand on the tax calendar again? What you think needs to occur there?
Well, we have an abbreviated tax calendar, but there's functions and tasks that we do in between those. And what I would like to see is a comprehensive tax calendar for just the PVA offices and revenue to work with, to where it gives us a better roadmap of what we need to do and when we need to do it, and make sure that these tasks get done in a timely manner. And of course, you guys are focused more on just the main dates, but there's little things we do in between that I felt like we need to possibly come up with something to get everybody on the same page. Right now, your average PVA in Kentucky has just a little over 10 years experience. When I come in, it was a little over 20 years experience. So we've got a relatively young group, and it would be beneficial to me, even as the old guy, if I had a little roadmap, a little checklist, I could go through and make sure I get everything done I'm supposed to get done.
All right, those are good suggestions. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Mr. Kelly, we do appreciate you, and at this time
Senator Harper Angel has a question.
okay, I'm sorry, Senator Harper Angel. You'll have to unmute your microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
I think it would be interesting if staff could put together some numbers for us. Kentucky Board of Tax Appeals, years ago, there was a tremendous backlog in those hearings. And when the cases have not been heard, the taxes are paid on the property owner's opinion of value, and it stays that way until the case is appealed. It would be interesting to see numbers of those Kentucky Board of Tax Appeals versus the Claims Commission, and see if that's improved or how that's working, because when they're backlogged, we're losing tax dollars. If maybe staff could put something like that together, it might be interesting for the committee members.
She is nodding her head, so we'll get that. We'll get those numbers out to each of the members.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, with that, Jeff, if you're going to stay on the line, we may, if we have additional questions later on, we may come back to you. But we're going to move on to Miss Rachel Pence Foster from Daviess County, who is an SKA, which I have no idea what that means, but I'll ask you to explain that for me, PVA. So, Ms. Foster, the floor is yours.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you for having us, by the way. I appreciate it. I wanted to reiterate that Jeff said. But SKA is Senior Kentucky Certified SKA is Senior Kentucky Assessor. There's
Okay.
different letters. There's
Okay.
also CKA, or a Certified Kentucky Assessor. Just means I've taken all the classes in the past.
Okay, thank you. Now, do you want to try to share your,
I would like to do it the same way Jeff did, please.
okay, give us just a minute then.
We need to get rid of that.
Which one is it?
She is, Davies County.
That's it.
Okay.
Well, of course, that's the first slide. If you don't mind, we'll skip it right into the presentation. I included just a few statistics about Davis County. I thought it was important. Total equalized assessment is a little over, I estimated because I hadn't gotten my certification yet, but it is actually a little over 8 million. Assessed values on motor vehicles and boats, 757 million.
Check your mute button, we're not hearing
It's
you.
about the county. What?
Oh, you got muted, so go back to, right after the boats. We did not get the parcels.
Well, can you see the slide?
Yes, we can.
Okay. It's just, I was just given some basic information about my county, just
Okay.
kind of getting a perception of size. Next slide. So I wanted to address each of the questions that you had in the memo. So basic information. I have 9.5 employees. We are funded for 12. This does not include the PVA, so the 9.5 does not include myself. The office receives a vacancy credit for the sacrificed 2.5 positions. This credit helps pay for the shortfall bill and raises. These raises are necessary in Davis County in order to retain educated employees. So it is very necessary because I have a big GIS department. I need trained GIS technician. Next question. Truthfully, I don't have any office procedure issues. My employees are educated on the guidelines from DOR and Kentucky state statutes. I do also use the same type of training as Jeff does, more of the mentor. If I know one person's employed and they've been here for 20 years, I usually try to hire someone in that trains with them for 6 months to a year to basically shadow them and try to learn their 20 years experience in a short amount of time. Next slide. The training on the job and classes given by Department of Revenue. I feel these classes are informative and directly related to their duties in the office. These classes are the best practices and an efficient way to educate throughout the state. There does, however, need to be classes given in different parts of the state more frequently. There are several offices that cannot afford to pay for hotel rooms nor lose a deputy for a week. So just my suggestion of having these valuable classes, in my opinion, because these classes educate us as a whole, and the same information is used to educate us. So I like to see more of those throughout the state. We abide by state guidelines with no issues. Davis County Fiscal Court provides space for ample storage, and we have Century File to store all important documents, such as homestead and disability exemptions, conference records, changes of addresses, and anything else we feel is needed. The filing system needs to be statewide and funded. That's just my 2 cents, and it's paperless. In my presentation, I was going to expand on technology. Next slide. Sorry, I'm just over here clicking away. Oh, I wanted to, yes, how is technology being used to better Davis County PVA office? Davis County is a rapid developing county that needs to utilize technology as much as possible for the lack of deputies/funding. We keep a great working relationship with all agencies in order to share services/cost. I'll expand on that a little bit throughout. So next slide. I have a website that's updated twice a week. Everyone in Davis County, there's nowhere that I go that I don't get a compliment on the website and being able to access that information. I have the CLEAR program, which is basically for information. It gives me access to databases in order to get the best like forwarding addresses when mail comes back to help for collections on the sheriff's department side. Century File, I touched on that a minute ago, but I just recently purchased that a few years ago, and everything is scanned in. So every homestead, every disability is actually done paperless. They sign up for it on the other side of the glass. There's actually no contact. They show their driving license, and that's scanned into the system. I mean, it's just there. And I can search. So if you came in and I needed to see if Mr. Mills had a homestead or disability, I would type in Mills in that database and it would pop up. It's a wonderful program. I'd love to see every county have that program. Aerial imagery, they're flown every 2 years. And this is a big statement here. The city/county consortium pays for 60% of of my flights. So I have a great working relationship with the consortium here, and they play a majority of those flights. And they are done every 2 years. And actually, this December, couple of months, I'm having a 2-inch flight done to better. Just I can see things much better and assess better. Access to countywide planning and zoning database for permits. This is a big difference between counties. Huge difference. There are many counties that don't even have a planning and zoning, and maybe one that does that just for the city limits. But we have a countywide planning and zoning that has every permit in a database that I can access for free at my fingertips. I can see any permit that is issued that day. Next slide. Some other things the office has is current and upgraded computers, printers, scanners, and software, tablets for field deputies. I have 2 field vehicles for deputies, and laser measurement tools for field work. Next slide. In summary, not all counties are equal. This inequality runs the gamut. Funding, county-city consortium, planning and zoning, parcel count, stagnation and growth, exponential growth, and office space. Next slide. The only way to solve the funding is a strategic continuous income stream based on each county size. Some of my ideas for that are the same as Jeff's. Dedicate a portion of the state tax rate to fund property tax. Basically, property tax pays for property tax. I'd also like to see enact a reasonable fee for the special taxing districts for the use of our tax roll. Questions? Short and sweet.
Senator Mills.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. Got a couple of questions for you. It was very good. I like short presentations and concise ones too. Just real quick, since you just touched on it, a reasonable fee, what is, and we won't hold you to the fire, but what do you think a reasonable fee is for the use of your information by these smaller taxing districts?
It would vary depending on each county,
Right.
I believe, depending on, and I would base it on a parcel count and reasonable for different types of budgets. So I would have to study those. I would have to study that before I could give I don't think there's a blanket answer.
Yeah. Okay, I appreciate you answering. That's kind of a loaded question, but I appreciate you giving a shot at it.
But it comes to the whole fact of the different sizes. my parcel, but I think basing it on parcel count for each district would be a fair way to do it.
Okay, and a couple more follow-ups. What is, just curious, what is your flyover you're getting ready to have done? What was the cost of that? Just, I can't remember. I know it was a big number when I was in city government, but we're just curious what current costs are on that.
So I think it's 83,000
Okay.
for 2 years.
I knew they were in the hundreds of thousands when we first initially did them over in Henderson County, so.
80, yes, for 2 years. Yeah, every year it's 42,883. So 85,000 per 2 years.
Okay. Then two more questions. Earlier you suggested that Department of Revenue training, that you wanted to see those trainings spread out throughout the state. Is some of that training available through technology, like through Zoom, or do you think it could, or is it one of those things that you have to be in class to really get the gist of the training?
No, I think that's an excellent idea, and I've actually thought about that. I think that you'll see so many different entities utilize Zoom after. It might be actually a good effect of COVID, is utilizing the Zoom, but it absolutely could be utilized for our classrooms. Yes.
Very good. Mr. Chairman, that's all my questions.
Have we got any on chat? Okay, I've got a few, and
Just one. Just get one.
well, you were talking about the access to planning and zoning. Do you, maybe it's apparent you have access and good access, reasonable access to that. Do you know of different counties that do not have that access or denied that access when requested, or have difficulty getting it?
I don't know of anyone that was denied access. I don't know statistic-wise who has planning and zoning and then who has access.
Right.
This has been just recently that they switched to a database that I could have a password to get into. We used to go and get them by hand. They would print out a copy of every permit, but we were at their mercy if they forgot to print one.
Right.
So I think a lot of counties still run that way if they have a planning and zoning. But out of 120 counties, I would think about maybe less than half that actually has planning and zoning.
Well,
Jeff?
Jeff, if you're talking.
I had just posted on the chat board there that Webster County does not have countywide planning and zoning under KRS 100. The city of Providence and the city of Seabury, they have planning and zoning. I go down to the fire barn and pick up a list of structures that came in and obtained permits for Providence. And the city clerk over at Seabury sends me the list of their permits every year about the first week of January.
Okay, and that's more what it's based on, the permits, new construction, things of that, so that we don't end up with that omitted property or overlooked property, whatever you want to call it, so, okay. Well, Ms. Foster, we appreciate you, and if you don't mind to hang on, we do a wrap up there. I'm sure there's going to be more questions. One thing, this is my third meeting of the day, and I've heard it in the other two, and it's a saying that many people use, and I think could be included in the PVAs. If you've been to one PVA in the state, you've been to one PVA. They're all diverse, they're all different, they're all unique, and they go from anywhere from 2 employees to multiple employees. So, we do have to be careful and keep that ability to act according to the individual needs at some point, but still try to get some sort of uniformity. So with that, I'm going to ask Ms. Martin to come up with Boone County PVA, and she's here in person, so
Yay, we get to see somebody in person.
Yeah, we finally,
A real person.
You want me
we get a real person,
back into it?
not that you two aren't real.
Virtual.
I pulled it up down there, so.
It'll take us just a minute to get the slide program pulled up. Ms. Martin, have you had a time to dry out? Because I ran into her coming.
Oh,
into the
no, she got
annex,
wet.
and she was caught in the middle of a downpour, and I think one of the LAs or something took her some of her clothes down to the dryer.
You don't realize how much you need an umbrella until you really need an umbrella. But yes, I think I'm good unless you can see that half my jacket is a lot and my hair's starting to curl and yeah, but I think I'm good. I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to present today. It was my understanding that somebody was asked specifically from Northern Kentucky to come, which we appreciate that very much. And that's why you got my little Northern Kentucky joke on the front of your slide, because it seems like the only thing Northern Kentucky is really known for is the Florence Y'all Water Tower. So I'll just put that as a little thing that is actually in my county. Boone County is the home of the Florence Y'all Water Tower. And Senator Mills, I apologize that my presentation is not short and sweet, but I talk fast, so I'll get through it quicker. And I am a CPA by trade, so I'm going to inundate you with numbers and charts and graphs. I'm also the chair of the budget committee, so I can add a little bit more of a spin on that. What I do is we have a budget committee of PVAs, and we get together to try and figure out how to best allocate the money that we're given. And the last 11 years, that has been very painful because we have not had real funding. We've had consistent funding issues. So we have tried to work together. We've been able to do that with the blessings of the commissioners that we've had, and they kind of let us manage our own money. As long as we stay within the confines, we don't go over budget, then we've been able to kind of manage that ourselves. So I'm also going to throw some of that in there just because I have that background. But since we talked about Northern Kentucky and it was mentioned, you know, Representative Bridges just said, if you've been to one PVA office, you've been to one PVA office. We are all different in everything that we do. And these are just the statistics from my neighbors up north, Boone, Kenton, and Campbell County. We are very much similar, but you can see we are very much different. I listed just the population, the parcels, and the tax roll. That's real property only assessment that we have in our counties. Kenton is the biggest. However, my tax roll is slightly larger, I would say, based on the, I don't know for sure, but I would guess that to our distribution warehouses that we have housed next to the airport. But if you look at the state-funded staff that we have, I have 10.5 employees, and Kenton has 14, and Campbell has 10.5 employees. And so you can see kind of the disparity with the numbers up there. And also I included local receipts, because not only do we have what the state allocates us, we have local funded receipts. And that varies depending on how many cities you have. And it may be hard to believe, but Boone County used to once be very rural. And so we only have 3 cities. And so that is why we have significantly less local funding than our counterparts in Kenton and even in Campbell, given the disparity of the size of the tax roll that we have. So when you're looking at counties and you're wondering how come Rachel can get 2-inch imagery and I am begging for anything I get, so these are all the things that kind of come into play with that. Oh, we're not on that. So like I said, Boone County has allocated 10.5 state-funded positions. My county, again, we try and give PVAs the option to run their offices the best way they want to run their offices. I actually have 8 part-time employees in my office, reason because I don't want to pay 84% of a retirement cost, and that savings will come back to my office. So I actually have 8 part-time employees and 8 full-time employees. I do have 1 listed for hire. And then on top of that, I pay for 1.5 of those part-time positions out of my local funds, because I need that to be able to get the work done that I have to get done. We talked about the inequity of staffing. Why is there that inequity? We've not had any increased funding. We've had only increased retirement costs. I'm sure that you all can remember, but I came in 2006, and I was part of the budget committee almost immediately. And I believe at that time, the state retirement contribution was 12%. It was not being fully funded, obviously, and now we're at 84%. And as you have dealt with that in other offices and yourselves and your own budgets, that has been a huge burden to us and how we've been able to function. So with that, no one has had any additional employees. So I get emails all the time, how can I get more employees? And I always sweetly say, and to all the PVAs watching, I'll sweetly say it again, that's very sweet that you think we have money for anyone to have additional employees, but there is no money for anyone to have additional employees. So sorry, if you have the local funds, we'd encourage you to do that. But and with the outlook of next year's budget or this year's budget, it's only going to get worse. Also, every county must have 2 employees per statute. There are 24 counties that have those 2 employees. I know I talked to Washington County PVA today, and she has had a deputy out for months because her husband has COVID, and she has continually tested negative, but because she's living with someone who has tested positive, I think 4 times, the deputy cannot go back to work. So it's just, she's rolling on 1 deputy right now. And so, they can't do field work, they can't leave the office, they can't hardly handle what's going on. So that 2 employees can present a problem for those offices who have extended absences or childcare issues at this point right now with schools not going back to school. You have heard Rachel and Jeff talk about this FAD number. I'm sure you've been dying to know what that means because I can't wait to talk about it. Back in 2010, when things started to really get bad, the PVAs, as part of the budget committee, came up with a way to save money. And they said, we are going to allocate how many, if we had 628 employees, in a perfect world, this is what the allocation would be. And if you are over the allocation, if you have 3.5 employees and the formula says you should only have 2.5, then the next time you have a separation, you are not going to be able to rehire that position. So there were, I went to say 37 counties who lost people through attrition in an effort for us to help make budget every year. And every year that saves us a significant amount of money. We've saved over $10 million to date with this formula, and we save over $1.5 million a year. Unfortunately, we've eliminated 28 full-time positions that should have been allocated to counties like mine, who has had that exponential growth and is running on empty at this point. But because we weren't able to reallocate them, we simply took them from the counties who were over according to the formula, and the counties that are under are still emailing me and asking me for more employees. This is just a nice little graph that I like to put together. This is the growth that Boone County has had year over year. This is not constant growth. This is not what we've done. And this is what the tax roll has done. So the red line is the change in assessment over the previous year, and the blue line is a change in median sales price over the previous year. So you can see where in 11 and 12, maybe things are steadily going up. And then what they're doing right now in 2020, the median sales price increase from January to July from my county is 11% in 7 months. And I'm expected to keep up with that growth. And I'll tell you why then, but so what my tax roll did last year is it went up almost 8% to try and maintain that. But that's over the previous year number. So my point of that is that in high growth counties, it makes it very hard to meet Department of Revenue mandates. And here's why, is that the Department of Revenue expects us to be in a 90% standard. Well, if my market went up 11% in 1 year, and that's January through July, but we'll pretend it's the whole year. If I assess that property for January 1, 2020, I would have put that property on for $89,000 if I was perfect. I knew 100% that property is worth $89,000. I am just 100% perfect. Well, at the end of the year, because we've had an 11% growth increase in sales prices because of the market, that property is now selling for $100,000. But when it sells on December 31st for $100,000, and I had it at $89,000 January 1st, then I have an 89% assessment to sales ratio. And it gets worse and these are my actual numbers, so that if in a 4-year quadrennial, I would have assessed that same piece of property for $73,900, which means I'm at a 74% ratio. And that really hurts us because the Department of Revenue expects us to have a 90% ratio. And if we don't have a 90% ratio, then we have to raise the difference. So in my county, because the market is growing exponentially, my ratio is 85.4%, which I actually think is pretty good given the numbers you saw on the previous slide. So for us to be certified from the Department of Revenue, we had to raise $360 million of property assessments this year. And that did not include my new property. So I had to put on $185 million of new property, in addition to $360 million of residential property reassessments. Our tax roll went up $1 billion over the previous year because of these things that we had to do. This mandate, coupled with being underfunded and understaffed, put a huge burden on us. It was the worst inspection period I have ever had. Don't ever want to do it again. And we don't have the staff to be able to keep up with this. And I know that's what you're hearing from all PVA offices, but it's because it's true. And if I don't get certified, tax bills don't go out the door. So the districts don't get their money. So I don't have the opportunity to say, no, I don't want to do that, because if I don't, and I tried actually, if I don't do that, the schools don't get their money. The fire districts don't get their money. The health, the library, the county, the state, they don't get their money. So that when you're looking at, the challenges we face and what we're doing, I think that needs to come into play is with these high growth counties. Coincidentally, my commercial ratio was 93.7%. So because it was over 90%, I actually didn't have to reassess any commercial property, which is good. But at the same point, there was a lot of money left on the table because I had to pull all my resources to reassess residential. My distribution warehouse market, I have 450 distribution warehouse markets, and I have the largest Amazon distribution warehouse currently being built, and over 3.2 billion square feet, 3.2 million. And I don't have time to reassess those. So I would say that my average per square foot price went from $36 to at least $42 a square foot in that market. And I don't have the resources to dedicate to put that into it. Quite honest, I'll try and do some of it next year if I don't have this huge residential burden on me. But there is money being left out there just because we don't have the staff to get it done. I talked about that. I did want to talk about tax anticipation loans, just as a point of what happens if we don't do our job, if we don't have the resources to do our job. One of the fire chiefs, because of COVID this year, the tax calendar was pushed back 90 days. That makes it very hard for tax bills to go out on time. We have been in constant conversations with our tax district, our sheriff's office, to see how can we get these tax bills out on time. These districts depend on this revenue. They want it to come out in October. That's when they need it. And the taxpayers want that bill. We get calls October 1st from people who, where's my tax bill? It is not in my mailbox. I assure you it will be there. I've never seen someone so excited to get their tax bill, but it's coming. But one of my fire districts said, are these tax bills going to go out on time? I said, I did everything I could to get my part done. Now we need to get the tax rates in. They have to be approved, He said he talked to a lawyer about getting a tax anticipation loan, and the cost was going to be $3,000 in legal fees just to set up that loan. My point is, when we don't, our job has ripple effects that I don't think has really been expounded on enough yet, or that people realize what kind of effect it can have if we don't get that certification, if the things do get pulled back or whatnot, is that we're really hurting these districts that depend on our money. And you asked about office procedures. This was probably a little bit more than you wanted to know. I wasn't sure exactly what you were looking for. But this is our organizational chart. You know, Jeff said that he has a small office and they cross-train. We do try and cross-train. We have to because we're understaffed. So I have to cross-train because I don't have enough people. I don't have the amount of people that I should to fund a department. We also do a lot of things. We do second reviews of a lot of things, and maybe that's me because I'm a CPA and I want separation of duties and powers, but we have 2 people look at deeds and 2 people look at plats and 2 people look at assessments so that one person doesn't have control of that, but it also takes up a lot of extra time that I'm making happen because it's important to me, and mistakes still get made even with that secondary layer. But that's why during that organizational chart, you'll see a review of things because we try and get 2 eyes on a lot of things. I wish I could get 2 eyes on everything that happened in our office so that we didn't have those mistakes, but unfortunately I can't do that. But I don't know if there are any more specific questions about office procedures or how we work, but that gives a real gambit of what we do and how we split it up and how we all report to each other. Staff training policies, you asked about that. We do the sponsored education, IAAO classes and webinars. We specifically have a training manual in our office pursuant to what softwares we have, something that somebody should be able to say, how do you remove a car from AVIS, or what documentation do you need? And it is very specific as far as that. How do you measure a house? What does this look like? And so we have a pretty big manual just specific to our county that we do. We have a specific HR manual, and hands-on training is imperative for an office like ours. You just can't send someone to classes and expect them to be able to do the job, because you wouldn't believe how many stories you have and how many unique situations you have come into our office where nothing will substitute for that real experience. So we always have somebody shadow different employees. We do have a larger office, so usually they'll be trained by 3 or 4 different employees so that they can get the entire gambit. We have record-keeping policies mandated by Kentucky Retention Records. We are essentially a paperless office, so we are able to keep things digitally, which I would hope that every county would eventually have that opportunity to. We are using signature pads, e-signatures. We scan. Every front desk person at my office has an individual scanner that they are doing. We use OnBase. I think Rachel said she used Centrifile. We use OnBase simply because our county did, and they were able to get us in their cost-saving measures. So we are under their contract for OnBase, which keeps our filing cabinets, our digital filing cabinets together. We utilize Smartsheet for forms on our website that you can use. We try to have everything that you can do in our office available on our website. We had that before COVID, and it was amazing that we had that set up, because they said, you know, when the county came to me and said, when does your office need to open up? And I said, really, our office does not need to open up, because we can point everyone to a website if they are comfortable doing that, because everything can be done on our website. And we do that with forms, and they fill out the forms, we send them an e-signature back, they sign it, and we have everything. You would be amazed. It amazes me how many elderly people over 65 applying for the homestead exemption have no problem uploading a picture of their driver's license and doing this online. You know, technology knows no age. We also just moved to iPads in the field and sketch validation, which will be really exciting as we move forward. And we have live chat on our website as well, so that if you wanted to ask a question in real time, one of our agents are able to answer those questions for you. Technology that should be available to all. These are things that, for cost-saving measures that you've asked for, if we did have a statewide contract that PVAs could buy into to reduce cost savings, just like I did with OnBase for my county, it would be helpful. Everybody should have the ability to have oblique imagery. You know, that is where we need to be moving to, and to have that, we have to have good imagery, and we have to have it there. Especially during COVID, we can't, in Boone County, we have not made physical field staff visits since March, because we don't feel comfortable knocking on someone's door right now. We are hesitant about doing it coming up with so many kids being at home from school now, and we're trying to figure out how we're going to do it, because if someone is measuring your house, the kids are instructed not to answer the door, and then they get freaked out because someone is measuring your house or taking a picture of it. So there are a lot of things probably that you all don't realize that are doing this, but COVID has really hurt our ability to do physical site visits. And that oblique imagery would help. We did recently have a flyover in March, but that imagery has not been made available to us yet. So it's really hurting us in that difference. And we are part of a consortium as well. Boone County has a planning and zoning department. They have a consortium. We're the only ones who apparently use and appreciate the oblique imagery, so we simply pay the difference of that cost. We do not have flyovers as often as some flights do, as some offices do. I wish we could get more. I wish we could get 2-inch. Rachel said she had 2-inch flights, and I thought, well, where I'm getting 3 and 6 in my rural parts of my county. So there is definitely a huge cost-saving measure if we did an entire statewide flight of oblique imagery with those things. LexisNexis, I think Rachel said she had clear. We do this to identify homestead exemptions. If you apply for the homestead exemption, we want to make sure that is your primary residence and that you don't have a secondary home in Florida. This happened, and we audit our homesteads once every 4 years. When we audited it, when we first got LexisNexis, we billed out $83,000. That was tax dollars that we billed out by finding people who were getting the homestead in Florida, getting the homestead in neighboring counties, and double dipping on that primary residence. So we billed out $83,000 the first year and $25,000 the next year. So we billed out over $100,000 of additional revenue just by having LexisNexis. And that costs $120 a month, but not every county can afford that. And maybe not every county has the staff to utilize it like we do, but we think it's important to do that to maintain an independent role. LoopNet, we used to have LoopNet. It got bought out by CoStar, and now it's very expensive. It was very nice for us to have. LoopNet was not cheap, but I could do a 3-month subscription for March, April, and May, or April, May, and June, and get me through my inspection period. Now we don't have access to any of that. And a statewide subscription to LoopNet CoStar would be invaluable for us when we have these tax representatives that Jeff said coming in and throwing these sales that we can't go out and find ourselves because we don't have access to the same systems they do. So in my opinion, those 3 things are definitely things that should be done on maybe a statewide contract and be made available to all of us, because everybody should have that for us to better utilize our job. We do have a computer-aided mass appraisal system in Boone County. It's a market-driven cost approach. It works amazing in subdivisions, essentially, and I love it because if someone says, you picked on me because I gave you a speeding ticket last year and now you're raising my property value. Actually, that's not at all what happened. It's a computer-aided mass appraisal system. I didn't even know you got increased. I can tell you exactly where, and I can show you how you're assessed like your neighbors. In subdivisions, it works amazing. In farms and rural counties, it's not going to help them at all. I still have rural parts of the county that I have to do individually one by one. But when I have a subdivision of 600 like houses, I can do it in minutes. I still review them all because if you can't tell, I'm very particular about things. But we still review them one by one to make sure that there are no outliers and that everything looks right. But the meat of it is actually done once we calibrate it. But like I said, that doesn't help rural counties as much as it does the urban ones. We do charge for the use of our website. We need that money. It goes back into our website for us to be able to use the technology to apply online. We let you appeal online. You can remove a vehicle. You can sign up for email notifications. We'll email you when we're going out to your neighborhood. So we have email lists that we collect. And then if we're going out to your neighborhood, we'll send you an email and say, hey, we're going to be out there. Don't get upset. Don't get alarmed. It really is us, and we'll be there and get out. So we electronic address changes, everything that can get done online. We also have neat mobile-friendly things. If you're out at a property, and I think representatives, you're in real estate, you could actually go on our thing and say, I want to see the sales near me, and it will actually geocode and populate the sales. So that's what we do with the income that we're deriving from our website and things that we're doing with that. But we do charge because we need that money. And I know I'm running out of time, so I will lightly touch on these funding issues. But because of my background, I always like to talk about this. A lot of times I get up here and speak a lot to the budget portion of it and beg for money every 2 years and now every year, right? So I'm the one up here saying, we need your money. And I always like to remind the state government that they are subsidizing the cost of our offices to fund local districts. So you're not just paying our office for the revenue you see in your budget. You're paying and supporting us to fund schools, fire districts, libraries, health, and extensions. In Boone County alone, that was $123 million of revenue that came in and at no expense to them. The state picked up the tab on the cost of that. And I think that's important to always realize that you're not just paying us for the money that comes back in your budget. You're paying us, you're supporting us for all of these districts. And these are my statistics just for my county. Again, I'm a numbers person. That this is the revenue to expense dollars that even the state sees just on real property assessments. We brought in $16.5 million of revenue to the state based on our real property assessment. And the cost was less than, the state funds us about $800,000. So that return on investment to the Kentucky state government is 19-1. And our county is 53-1. Florence, my city of Florence, y'all, 135-1. My city of Union and Walton. In total, return on investment in my county is $114 to 1. I also threw this in here just because I think it's a big point. If I was a taxing district and I said, how much does it cost for me to earn this property revenue, right? I get property tax revenue checks dispersed to me in October, November, December. How much is it costing me? Well, you're either paying my office to assess the property or you're paying the sheriff to collect it. So to no fault of their own, the sheriff's office is getting over $4 million for collecting the money and writing the check back to the districts. I'm getting about 1.2 million to assess it. And my county sheriff does not charge 4% to every district. He charges 2% to schools, he charges 1% to fire. So they're not even charging everything they could be charging. And I'm not saying the sheriff needs to be charging less. I'm saying they're getting almost 4 times, 3.5 times the amount of money that we're getting to collect that money. And we're being the ones with charge to assess it. There is a funding disparity there. And I just think it's important to point out that these districts are paying the sheriff to collect it. Also, just wanted to close out with relationships. Every county PVA office is different, partly because of the relationships they have. Some PVAs have great relationships with every person in their jurisdiction, and some don't. If you have it, we have a good relationship. We use our county's IT department, which is amazing. We're on their network, which is amazing. We don't get charged every time we call COT, which a lot of offices do. We get property maintenance cleaning. I know some offices pay somebody to clean their office. We are using our property maintenance. We get to use their conference rooms. We use their permitting system. We use their vehicle, their county maintenance will service our vehicles, and they will bill us for them, but we're getting it at a much reduced rate. We don't have to, we get to use their mailroom and postage machine. We're under their GIS mapping. We took advantage of them with the on-base license and things like that. So those relationships are another reason why you're going to see different counties have different things. Why maybe Boone County has something that another county doesn't have, because maybe there's relationships there that simply don't exist. To no fault of anyone's own. Maybe they don't want to. Maybe they don't want to be part of it, or I don't want to get into that. I don't know, but that helps as well. So my opinion is obviously property tax should fund property tax, whatever way that is. I will say I've had discussions with my judge's office as recent as last month, and we've talked about getting together the school board and the fire districts and the library and saying, how can we help make this a more equitable solution? Because my county feels like they're also subsidizing the cost of these things, and it's catching up to them. So I'll take any questions you might have.
Thank you so much. Senator Mills?
Just got a few questions. Thank you. That was good. You mentioned earlier, you said that this was the worst inspection period ever as on the residential side. Was that just purely the amount of hours that y'all had to put in, or what made it the worst inspection period? Is it-
We sent double the amount of notices that we've ever sent before because we had to. We had that 85.4% sales ratio,
Mhm.
so we had to raise $360 million. So whereas we usually only send 7,000 notices out, we sent 14,000 notices out. We sent it out during COVID when people were unemployed and home from work. So not only was it the hours, it was the names I was called on
Yeah.
social media. I had one person ask me, how do I sleep at night doing this? Because like I said, I don't get to say no. I was given a task that I have to do, and I don't have a choice. So when it was the worst inspection period for a lot of reasons, not only the amount of work, but also the environment and the circumstances and what I had to overcome to be able to get certified. I got certified with, you're supposed to have a 90% ratio, and I have like an 89.6, which thankfully rounds up because I don't think I could have gotten all the way to 90.
Good. Just about two more. You were talking about actually missed assessing commercial property in your county. How many years can you go not doing that? I mean, is there something in statute that tells you that, or is that involved in the equation
Yeah.
of?
You have to physically inspect property once every 4 years.
Okay.
I could honestly reassess warehouses every 2 years because the market in my county changes that much and dictates the need for that. Practically speaking, if my ratio is above 90%, I'm supposed to physically inspect it every 4 years. I should look at it once every 4 years. But there's nothing like there was on the residential side saying I have to do this because my residential ratio is 85.4%. I didn't have to do that with commercial because my ratio was 93.7, which means that obviously if my ratio is 93.7% on commercial property, that it's assessed highly enough that my median ratio is 93.7. It's just not as big of a need. But I do think, like I said, my warehouses could be done every 2 years easily.
But if you had the right staffing, you could have went back this year and assessed.
I would do them every
Yeah.
2 years because, well,
Yeah, because it's changing. You mentioned a ton about technology. Do you have a specific person in your office that's in charge of technology, and then you also share stuff with the county, correct?
I do. I actually, at one point, probably 10 or 11 years ago, I was moving to technology faster. I was the IT person in my office. And so in 2009, I actually had a full-time IT person that helped me for a few years to get we have a lot of in-house programs that we use to keep track of things just on our own. They developed those programs. Now I have a part-time person that kind of keeps all of those up and running. But yeah, absolutely. And I need both of them. I need the support of the county and the in-house.
Absolutely. Two more. They're short, hard, quick hitting.
He likes the long presentation. He acts like he does.
I got a lot of good questions. So I think we're going to hear about this next meeting, but a statewide flyover, is that possible? Is it done every year?
To my knowledge, which is not, Tom Crawford may have better knowledge than mine from what I've heard, which is total hearsay, is that the flyover is done. It's done not at what we would want to see. So maybe it's 6 inch and it's not oblique imagery. And when we're looking at assessing using GIS instead of going to someone's house, which I think we've decided is the way that we need to move for efficiency and technology purposes, we have to have that 3D oblique imagery. And the state is not getting that, to my knowledge. I don't think it was even in their RFP when they sent out to bid that they wanted to get it. But that is something that moving forward, the PVA offices do need that oblique imagery in better resolution than what the state is currently flying over at.
Okay. I think we'll be able to answer that maybe in a week or so, or next month. LoopNet, tell me about LoopNet real quick.
Well, it's CoStar right now.
Okay.
But it basically has all the commercial sales everywhere. You could say, I want to see the warehouse sales, because what these tax reps do, and I don't want to drown you with this, but they come in and you say, I have these sales of these warehouses right here. And they say, well, that doesn't count because that's a portfolio sale. And that doesn't count because that's a lease back. And they try and throw out all your sales because they're working on a commission to lower property values. And so when they're throwing out our sales, because they say, if you had, it says right here in CoStar, it's a portfolio sale. It says right here in CoStar, it's a lease back or whatever they want to call it. And we are not able to go very far outside of what we have and the information we have to dispute those. So if, Western Kentucky or Northern Kentucky, I can go to Ohio to get sales pretty easy. It's all in the Cincinnati market. I'll have access to those sales. CoStar would give me access to those sales to say, hey, this is the identical warehouse sold north of the Cincinnati market instead of south of the Cincinnati market and sold for this. But we're not able to reach those because we don't have the CoStar. And it's an unfair advantage that these tax reps have because they're using that to reduce values, and we don't have anything back to back it up. But it is very expensive. I think I looked at it, it's $2,500 or something. It was crazy expensive.
One more, and this may put you on the spot, but how many special taxing districts in Boone County presently are not paying for your information that you generate? Just curious.
Yeah, I have it here. I have 2 school districts, 9 fire districts, so that's 11. The library district, the health department, and the extension agency, so 13. 11, 12, 13, 14.
Okay.
14.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I believe Senator Harper Angel has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really appreciate the comments of the last 2 meetings where we talked about needing a dedicated funding stream, be it portion of the state rate or special district's fee for the assessment role. But I'd like to throw a third option out there and offer some insight to the committee members. The PVAs are required to send a percentage of their local funds to the state to supplement payroll. And to my knowledge, it's the only state agency that has that requirement. If the state would fully fund the cost of personnel and allow the PVAs to keep their local appropriations, they could afford technology, training, and additional staff if needed. I think it would be good information for the committee members if we could get a list of each county's percentage of local funds that they send back to the state, and that would also give a good idea of what is needed to absorb that amount into the budget. I think that is another option we should pursue as a dedicated stream to allow the PVAs to keep their local funds and spend them on their office needs. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Harper Angel. I actually have that information as chair of the budget committee. I could give you a detailed list out, but this year we sent up $8.5 million of our local funds back to Frankfurt to fill the hole. Offices do have the option to absorb those losses within their office. So like I said, I get a bill, I think my bill is $400,000 this year. And that's why I use part-time employees, because if I can say, hey, I'm recognizing 4 full-time benefits, then that comes off my bill. And we've set it up that way so that PVAs have the option to say, how are we going to handle this? But it comes down to $8.5 million that we're short, which does not account for, we have a 90-day hiring delay. And nobody hires within 90 days, and it's been that way for 11 years. We've had a 90-day hiring delay in effect that it does not hit the state budget unless you have 0 employees for 90 days. So if you're an office of 2 people and you have someone leave, you are mandated 90-day hiring delay. You have 1 person in that office. We've done that for 11 years. All these things to make budget. That's not including the 28 positions we lost that need to be reallocated to other counties. That's not including that to be fully funded would probably put us around $71, $72 million. We're sending back $8.5 million, which I believe this year is somewhere, I think it's 65% of our local funds and money is coming back to the state, which means we're operating on what we have on 35%, and that's what we're using to fund the technology.
I believe Senator Harper Angel has another question.
Oh, she's good. I like her. Except I can't see her, so it's very crazy.
Thank you for that, Cindy. I appreciated how forthcoming the PVAs have been with offering closely with the committees. Absorbing those vacancies is just lessening the accuracy of the assessment role. So we're not coming out ahead. This is an office that makes money for the state and makes money for our schools, our government services, our fire departments, everybody. And we need to look at that dollar-to-dollar return, and it's much more than dollar-to-dollar return. We've got to fund it, and if we can't come up with the other two options, this is just the third one that I'm throwing out there as something that's not done elsewhere. And where did this come from? It's been going on forever. It's time to stop it so that we can move on and do an adequate job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator, and I echo your remarks. That's one of the reasons why we have this task force at hand right now. And there is the fourth option that I appreciate that y'all are putting forward too, is the cutting back on redundancies and the saving measures. And we are, I have had discussions with A&R about those savings and how they can stay in the office rather than being returned. So I think my PVA said this year they're going to send back $120,000.
No,
I
yep,
think,
probably easily.
And there were expenses he probably could have spent that on, but the way the accounting works out and everything, you don't know it till after the fact,
Right.
and you don't want to go out and spend money if you don't know you have it. So there, I believe, or correct me if I'm wrong, but there may be some measures of readjusting those guidelines to meet those needs or better suit those needs.
Yeah, I'm not sure I fully understand your question. Sorry if there.
Well, I mean, and we've got a new PVA, so he may not be fully understanding, but he's
Oh,
sending back 120, but
Right.
and he says we really need to replace 2 cars and should have and didn't, and it's
Oh, right.
my lack of knowledge, but also the lack of knowledge that you're going to have that over,
Right.
until after it's over.
Right.
So,
And there are some options there, but they involve staffing. And if he needs a staffing, he has to take it in his office. What's more important, the staffing, the technology, or the vehicles? And the vehicles are probably going to be at the one that loses out because staffing and technology are what runs our offices essentially.
well, I've got a few questions myself,
Okay.
and we've met and we've
Yeah,
talked, so
we're good.
I'm not bullying you, I promise.
No.
Bear
Oh
with
gosh,
me.
that's scary though. Thanks for the
No.
warning.
No, I just, one thing that was on one of these, and this may not have been yours, but actually it was in your office outline of who
Oh
does
yeah, my
what.
organizational chart.
The return bills.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually talked to my sheriff's office that really struggles with that too when they're trying to collect those and everything. Do you have any suggestions on that as far as the billing? Because I know in the tax calendar, the codes, regulations, and I'm still, I'm going to request some research on what is actually constituted and what is statute, so, because we can change the statutes. But, the billing is, the bill's due to the person that owns the property first of the year,
Mhm.
but it's not collected until the end of the year, and if that property sells in between there, you have a quandary of sending the bill to the new owner, care of the old owner, who actually has legal liability for that. And I know, being a realtor, I deal with that every day, and I know the prorations and all that, but, I mean, legally, your office,
Mm-hmm.
forget about the proration unless you prove it. We're going to go after the property owner the first of the year, and the care of, and you fill it out, and you change all the forms for that, and then at the end of the year, you got to go back, and it's a redundancy factor that you got to go back and correct all that into the next year. Do you see any solution for that?
I mean, the problem I think is there's a practical application of what actually happens in the real estate world with the proration of taxes, and there's a legal application of what happens in the PVA world. In my office, we dedicate more time to that because I don't want homeowners to miss tax bills and say, oh my gosh, on April 15th, I realized that my tax bill is now 3 times what it should have been. So we work really hard on that. We transfer deeds until the 1st of August. So if the deed got filed before August 1st, then the tax bill is going to go out with their name on it. But we send the file over in August. So at that point, we can't. So those property owners that have transferred in August, September, they are at a loss. I think we've tried to educate the title companies to tell them to go look for those bills, that they won't be mailed to them. If they are returned, we always check for new owner, and we always send that bill back to the new owner and let them know they have that liability. A lot of offices don't have staffing to do that. I know some offices say, I don't have time to work return tax bills. And a lot of people don't have time, and we don't have staffing to be able to handle that. We just make it more of a priority. because we don't want those tax bills to go unpaid, or we don't want it to come back when the bill gets bought and the person never even realized it because it was in that. So we make a point to handle those return tax bills and just educate from that standpoint on how do we fix it statutorily. I guess in a perfect world, it would be, I don't even know, because there's such a lag time between, even, like I said, I send my file to the county in August. You know, my file is due to them in the middle of August so that they can work on getting the rates, balance the file, just so our tax bills go to the printer the beginning of September typically, for our tax bills to go out October 1st. That's usually how that rolls. So there is a small amount of time. So for me, I think I'm doing really good that I sent a file to my county August the 10th, and I have owners as of August the 1st in it. But that's something definitely worth looking into, because I do see it as an issue for homeowners.
Well, I've heard it from a PVA, but the sheriff's department is,
Yeah.
you know, in the collection process, it's very difficult for them too.
Mhm.
And a lot of these, when they do this, and I do numbers of closings a year, you get forwarding addresses, and a lot of times it expires
Mhm.
before, so it gets lost in the mail too. So there's a lot of different things that goes into this. I do understand that, but you know, if you do have any suggestions at a later date, please.
Well, we
reach out.
also do use LexisNexis, which again is one of the things that our county has that not all counties have. So if that does come back returned as undeliverable, we'll run them in LexisNexis and try to find them and say, well, they moved to an apartment, and we can find out they picked up a utility and LexisNexis is recording their new address. So we'll try and chase them, I think, a lot further to make sure of that. But yes, we'll definitely get together as a group and discuss that.
And I've got a question for, let me go back to Ms. Foster, that you had, I'm sort of wrapping this up because I think I was the last question, but you, or for any of the three of you, as far as these special task districts, I think Ms. Foster suggested maybe a per parcel fee. I would like to just get a thought of maybe a percentage fee, you know, either would.
I don't know if Rachel wants to talk to that first. I would prefer a percentage fee, because if I have a $100 million Amazon warehouse, it doesn't seem to me, you know, we have 911 fees in our county, and for simplicity purposes, they made everybody $75, which is the way they chose to do it. I'm not discrediting that at all. But there are a lot of people that say, well, Amazon gets a lot of 911 calls, and it's really funny, but if an ambulance comes to the Amazon warehouse, and then that person doesn't have to show up for work that day, and they get paid for it. Whereas if they just call in sick, they might not necessarily get that. So the point of that is that these ambulance districts are running to the Amazon warehouse all the time, and they'll get to the warehouse, and then the employee will say, oh no, I'm fine, I don't even want your service. But they've had to make that call, and they're paying the $75 just like as a homeowner am paying $75. And so in my opinion, the per parcel count can, you know, create a disparity or inequality that maybe we would want to address more. It is by far the simplest, and that's why my county did it for the 911 fee, but it can create some disparity. And I don't know if Rachel wants to add on to that.
Oh, I'm absolutely great with the percentage. It was just, it was an answer. It was a quick thought, since I had just thought about parcels, but I'm great with the percentage. I defer to Cindy.
Okay. Well, and you know, if you're going to think or ask big. You know, the worst thing the answer is
Right.
no. So,
Right.
just you know, and one thing we're getting ready to wrap up.
We can do both.
Okay. Well, let's don't get greedy. You know.
Pigs get fat and hogs get slaughtered, Rachel.
Yeah.
I'm
That-
kidding. I'm kidding.
And, but one thing I would like to share is sort of the instigator of this task force, and I was able to share with Ms. Martin earlier is, you know, our intent for this is maybe represented in a way, or not represented, but maybe non-intentional, is it's not to point to PVAs of insinuating in any way that you are doing anything wrong, because you're not. The intent of this task force is to do exactly what that says, and the fact of the matter is, especially this started before the COVID crisis, but with it just multiplies the fact and and everything that, you guys need money. And just to be honest with you, I'm sitting here looking at two senators. I can tell you right now, the state has no money. I mean, we are under a financial crisis, and it's only going to get worse before it gets better with the upcoming year, because last year we had 8 healthy months coming in with surpluses that help offset this budget this year. And then we made cuts from last year's budget or this current year's budget, and some of those cuts have got to be made up in the coming year. So we're going to be in even a worse financial shape. So in preparation of that, we are looking for savings, but that's part of the intent of this, is trying to help you and to reduce the redundancies and look for the savings. GIS, I think there are some things that can be overcome in that area from the discussions I've had, and we'll find out more here in the upcoming weeks or the next meetings. But all of these, and LoopNet, I know what you're talking about. I'm a member of LoopNet. It's not cheap. And even if I got a property on there or not, it costs out the wazoo just to be able to access that information. But maybe I've never thought of a statewide access or whatever. Anyway, I'm not gonna go through the other questions. We'll trade numbers, and maybe I can call you or something. But the big thing I want to express is I appreciate your willingness to be transparent and open up and put it out there. And I think working together and having this conversation that hasn't been had in a long time will benefit the state as a whole. So that's our goal. And I drug Robbie into this, and he's or Senator Mills, and he's like, "What have you got me into?" And I said, it is. I want to assure you, with good intentions. So
We greatly appreciate having a seat at the table today. Thank you very much.
With that, I believe that I've lost my cheat sheet here, but I believe that concludes our business for the day. Am I correct? So if we have a motion to adjourn. Okay, in a second. All those not in favor can stay, but the rest of us can go home. Thank you.